Section 5.5 is all about the distributive property. Notice your homework eventually will be on page 15, but for now we're just learning about how to use the distributive property and then combine like terms, just like we learned before. You probably are wondering, what is this distributive property even used for? Well, it's especially useful for mental math, which we don't use a lot very much these days, but it's also used a lot in algebra. For example, if I need to do 5 times the quantity 10 plus 7, I could just do 5 times 17, but that's really hard to do in your head. So instead, if you use the distributive property, if you remember, the distributive property says that I distribute the 5 to being multiplied by 10 and then being multiplied by 7. And I add those two results. So again, remember the arrows we talked about before at the beginning of the year. 5 times 10 is really easy to do in your head, 50, and I'll write it right there. 5 times 10 is 50, and 5 times 7 is 35. Then the last step is to add those. And you can add those in your head and get 85. 5 times 17 is not as easy to do in your head. We're going to be using algebra though, and with algebra, of course, there are variables. So you'll notice a lot of variables in these. Please turn in your packet to page 10. I'll write that up here. Page 10 in your packet and take some notes. What is the distributive property? Well, if you use symbols to show what the distributive property is, you would write it like this. A times the quantity, but we don't have a times symbol. We just know that it means multiply. A times B plus C in parentheses. Because we have letters, we can't add B plus C together and get anything. But we could go ahead and multiply and write that out. So remember, A times the quantity B plus C is equal to A times B plus A times C. The A gets distributed to both the B and the C, and there's a plus sign in between. When do you need to use the distributive property? Well, it's basically anything you want to simplify by getting rid of the parentheses. So you use the distributive property to simplify, but first you're going to get rid of the parentheses instead of doing what's inside the parentheses first, like we normally did in GEMDAS. So here's another example. 5 times the quantity A plus 2. We don't know what A is, so we can't substitute for a number at this time. We can't evaluate this expression. So we're going to be left just with 5A plus 5 times 2. But 5 times 2 we can simplify and get 10. So our answer is 5A plus 10. I know that doesn't seem right, but that is your final answer. Okay, I'd like you to please look over on this side at the distributive property box for you to try yourself. I'll do the first couple with you, and then I'd like you to try the rest and then check your work. Please note that there is one mistake. This right here, this -5, is actually supposed to be -10. So could you please scribble that out and write a 10 instead of the 5? Okay, going back here. Just like we did with combine like terms, the first thing you want to do is simplify this so that it'll simplify these so that they'll match up with something on this side. We first want to draw the arrows to remind us that 2 is multiplied by x, and then 2 is multiplied by 6. You can do that in your head. 2 times 6 is 12. Don't forget to write the plus sign in between. So 2x plus 12 is what we're looking for. We want to take a look on our paper for anything that says 2x plus 12. And if you look all the way at the bottom, that's where we're going to connect. Okay, this next one, 12 times x minus 12 times 2. Notice I said minus. The reason is because if this sign right here is a subtraction sign, then you have to keep the subtraction sign in your answer. So we will have 12x minus 12 times 2, which is 24. Don't forget to then find that, and if you don't find the answer, you might have gotten it wrong. So recheck. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, and please complete the rest of these Don't forget when it says -7, you have to multiply the -7 by the -2. So you're going to get plus 14 in this one because a negative times a negative equals a positive. And you'll start off with -7x plus 14. So don't forget about those signs. Okay, go ahead and pause and complete it, and then check your work. Okay, so you're back. Hopefully you did this. You should have gotten 5x plus 35 for that one. You should have gotten 12x plus 18 for this one. You should have gotten 3x minus 3. This one we already wrote, but you just had to connect it. This one was a little tricky, but it's positive 2x minus 10. So that's the one that had the wrong constant. And this 15x plus 10 should be right here. And lastly, 9x plus 27, which is right here. Okay, next door, I just want to remind you over here, what does it mean to evaluate an expression? Because remember, this expression right here, we do not get a single number answer for it. This is our answer. But when we evaluate an expression, that means that you're actually going to be substituting, oops, make sure I spell that right, substitute a value for a variable and simplify the expression. When you evaluate, you do actually get just a one-number answer. You get a one-number answer. For example, in the one above, 5a plus 10, let's say that a equals -2. Well, then we have -10 plus 10, which would be 0. So our one-number answer is 0. All right, let's do one more example. This time you get to try. For a equals -10, b equals, and we already did this is just a little bit of review, -2, and c equals -5, please try to evaluate, remember that word, evaluate a plus b minus c. Now pause the video and try to do that yourself. Check your work. And now we come back. -10 plus -2. Remember to use parentheses anytime you're substituting. And then minus -5. This is different from what you're going to be doing for distributing. But it's a quick review. So now we have -12 plus a +5, which is -7. This is called evaluating. Distributing is where you simplify. So this is where you simplify. All right, great job.